Hello, I'm Troy Parker, President of Innovative Labor and Cleaning, and this is another Mental Health Monday. Today I want to talk to you about suicide. In the news lately, there have been two major suicides that have caught the public eye. One was a celebrity's son who took his life, and the other was a beauty pageant queen who took her life. When these things happen, people look and they say, well, I never knew. I never thought, they even thought anything like that. How could this happen? But every day, there's around 132 people who commit suicide, and I'm not sure how many people attempt to commit suicide. But it's a topic that many people kind of shy away from. It kind of is wrapped up in that whole mental health stigma. But I wanted to go over a few things that we work on at our company and making sure that all of our employees, especially during this time of COVID and economic uncertainty, they're not in the wrong mental headspace. There are many signs that if you watch for them, that you could see a person might be contemplating suicide. And I'll tell you a personal experience of mine. When I was incarcerated, I went through, and I think I've mentioned this, a drug treatment program. It had those who struggled with addiction, and it had those who struggled with mental health, and some struggled with both. In that, they talked a lot about committing suicide. Had you ever thought about it? Some of the signs. And I noticed, and I'll give examples of things I actually physically saw and experienced, and things I've seen since I've been home from incarceration. But a lot of times when people commit suicide, it is because they feel there's no way out. I have to be honest. When I was sentenced to 10 years in prison and I was sitting in the county jail, even I thought for a moment, I can't do this. I might as well just end it. Now, I didn't, but that's because there were people around me and I got support, and then I made it through. But many times people don't have this support. So I want to go over some of the nonverbal signs that a person may be thinking, contemplating suicide. First is social distancing. Now, when we were in prison, there was a group of us, maybe 40 guys, that were on one floor. We lived on one floor, the classroom was all on that floor. And you would see people distancing themselves. Sometime it would be they would often sit by themselves. Even after class was over and other guys would be watching TV and maybe playing games, these people would either sit off to themselves or they might go out and walk the track. They would isolate themselves. You'd also see that in the group setting during class, when people were participating, these people would either stop participating and just sit there, or when they did participate, it would be very limited. Now, out here in the free world, there's other signs you can look for. Social distancing now during COVID, since we might not physically see people every day, sometime, and what we've used at our company is look at our employees' social media posts. If you see someone who posts all the time, maybe happy pictures or pictures of their cat or their dog, or they comment and like a lot, then all of a sudden they just disappear. That could be a sign they're going through something. Also, sometimes what they say in their posts. I know in the one example of the celebrity's son who passed away, he had made a post a few days prior saying that he didn't think social media was good for him. But many times you'll see people who've been bullied or people who are going through something else, could be a breakup. They'll post something kind of ominous or like, I'm tired of this. You're not going to hear from me anymore.
Tributes are pouring in for former Miss USA Chesley Christ. Police say she died by suicide today in Manhattan. Investigators say Christ jumped from a high-rise building on 42nd Street in Midtown West this morning. Christ was crowned Miss USA in 2019 and also competed in the Miss Universe pageant. The North Carolina native most recently worked as a correspondent for the TV show Extra. Christ was 30 years old. If you or a loved one are in crisis and need someone to talk to, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, or you can text the word TALK to 741 741.
Now these are more so typed out, but these are signs that you can look for of that social distancing. Either lack of communication when they're at work, employees that come and they get involved in company meetings if you're still meeting in an office, or if you're in a call center, you might see the person not interact as much with their employees. These are signs to look for. Next sign is an absence of pride or care in their hygiene. You might see a person who comes to work, maybe they don't shave, or sometimes people will wear the same outfit day after day, or they won't have their hair kept. Or if you're meeting on a Zoom, you could tell by their appearance on the Zoom meeting, he doesn't look okay, their face is a little drawn. These are signs that also could tell you this person is maybe going through something. Now, maybe they're not contemplating suicide. They could be depressed because with COVID going on and not being able to interact, some people might just be going through some depression. But it's still a good time to reach out to them and maybe talk to them one-on-one. The next would be persistent drop in mood. You might see a person, friend, family member, colleague, that their mood just seems to continue to drop. Day after day, or could be down this week and a little lower the next week. That's also a sign that the person could be going through something and could be contemplating suicide. Next would be either change in eating habits or drastic loss of weight. A lot of times when people get depressed and start contemplating suicide, I know when I was incarcerated, you'd notice the person, part of that isolation and social distancing, they would stop going to the chow hall and they wouldn't really eat in the unit. Because normally certain groups of guys would go over to the chow hall together and you'd see this person staying back, social distancing. You might see a change in their physical appearance, and maybe as far as shaving, but then they would stop eating. They wouldn't leave the unit. You wouldn't ever see them eat anything out of their locker. Even employees on the job now, sometimes you'll see that they stop going to lunch. Or a lot of the crews will go to lunch together. They'll just kind of, oh, I'm just gonna stay here on the job. Or when everyone else is eating, they just kind of sit in the corner. This is another sign that something could be going on. Next, alcoholism and drug use. Now this is something that dealing with those who are recovering from substance abuse, you might see. Something happens and it triggers and you notice they start drinking. Or maybe they used to drink moderately, but now it's maybe more obsessive. They're drinking all the time, or when they go out to drink, they're drinking more than they normally do. This could also be a sign. Next would be anger. You might have fits of anger. A person who normally might be nice and calm may become very agitated at something that might seem small to you. These behavioral changes could also be a sign. Also, another sign is giving away possessions that mean a lot to them or used to mean a lot to them. Some people might say, well, hey, here's my collection of stamps, or somebody has old cars. You'll see them start giving these possessions away that normally they cherish and always talk about. This could also be a sign that something is going on and maybe they need some help. Now there's also indirect verbal communication. One, signs of hopelessness. You might hear people talk about, well, you know, what's it really all worth? What are we really doing here? I don't really think anyone appreciates me. These statements could be a telltale sign that the person is feeling like, there's no real option for them. They don't fit in. Next, there's failing to see the future. You could see a person who's usually more upbeat, going after maybe his sales goals or whatever his goals are, whatever profession he might have. You might see them more or less take an attitude like, what's it all for? I mean, it's really not going to make a difference. That failing to see the future or having any hope. This is also a sign that something is going on. Next is saying things like they feel worthless, unappreciated, they're not good at anything, they don't know why they're here, no one likes them. Statements like this can also be a sign. Then there is when people just plain out talk about death or not wanting to be here. I've had instances where I've had people come up and just say, you know, I really wish this was all over. And you're surprised, but that they are basically telling you that, hey, they want to go. Many times, or most times, these people are not sickly or anything like that. Like they have no terminal illness. They just have gotten to a place where they can't see any hope. There's no light. They feel all by themselves. So hopelessness, talking about death, just saying, hey, I want to die, is definitely a clear sign. Now, the reasons for suicide are very complex. It's never just one reason. So please don't ever think it's just this one thing. It could be a breakup in a relationship. It could be an illness. It could be facing some type of legal challenge. It could be loss of job. It could be many things. It's usually not one thing. It's usually a culmination of many things. And then it's just that last thing that kindly pushes them over the edge. Risk factors to look at to see, hey, how likely is this person to maybe go through with this? One, have they had any past attempts? If they have, in any case, you want to get them or be there for them right away. But when a person has had other unsuccessful attempts at suicide, you really want to be vigilant. Next is, do they have weapons around them? I know in the prison setting, make sure you don't have any type of sheet, sharp object, things like that. Out here in the free world, does the person have a gun? Are they isolated where they live by themselves so something could happen to them and you would never know? Do they have pills, medications they could take? A lot of times a person might not use a gun. They may overdose on certain pills. And especially those who have substance abuse. Many times suicide is masked in an overdose. Many times a person who has a substance abuse problem and maybe has been clean for 5-10 years may hit that point and just give up and then go back to some drug and take it in a way that they know could take their life. I had people admit in the class I was telling you about in prison that some of them tried this. Now they were unsuccessful attempts, but it is something to keep in mind for those who have struggled with addiction. There are many protective factors that can help a person who is maybe thinking of suicide. Now they might not have these protective factors now, but these are things you could suggest to them, maybe go with them to help them get on their feet and get a foundation. One protective skill is basically problem-solving skills. Maybe taking a course in problem-solving skills. There's many classes out there for those who maybe struggle with mental illness or had past suicide attempt that will teach them problem-solving skills, a different way to look at the situation so that they don't feel so lost. The next, a cultural or religious background that is against suicide. This many times is a strong deterrent for someone if they have religious belief and they feel that taking their own life is wrong. Third, a connection with friends, family, and the community. Being connected, as you can see during COVID, is a big thing. When we feel disconnected and alone, you've heard many people, from celebrities to just people who aren't celebrities, to let you know that COVID and being isolated was very hard on them, and many do talk about being depressed and contemplating suicide. So get the person involved with family, community, and other support groups. Next, supportive relationships with care providers. Make sure, if you can, that they have someone they can talk to. Having a care provider, either a phone number or a Zoom or physically go there, is key. And lastly, limited access to lethal means, meaning guns, pills, anything else that they could hurt themselves with. Now, suicide is a touchy subject. Most people don't want to admit that they're even contemplating it. So in my next video, I will go into how to have that conversation or start the conversation with someone that you might suspect is struggling with this. Because if you don't really know, it's not really smart to come out and say, hey, you're thinking about, harming yourself. You kind of have to get some of the signs and then to kind of ease into it. But there are ways and techniques that I'll share with you that'll help you. Keep in mind, we want to watch after our brothers and sisters. And you never know what someone is going through. It could be the clerk at the store that you hardly even know. That's why I take the time to ask a person how they're doing. Sometimes even just by how they answer back, you can see kind of what their mindset. And then I'll try to say something to them that will cheer them up. Because sometimes if a person is contemplating suicide, and I've heard this from people while I was incarcerated, I've heard it from even family members, that some little thing, like someone taking the time to say something nice, stop them from attempting to take their life. So as always, I hope this helped. And remember, it's up to you to make your life matter.